Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I need to adjust the volume here. Hold on. Oh, and you know what else we need to do? We need to turn filters back on. Yes, sir. All right. How's that sound? All right, guys. It is Monday the 26th. We got the end of month coming in here. A couple bit more economic reports coming out this week, so should be an interesting week to watch. And yeah, we're like right back up at all-time highs as always in the E-mini on Friday. So on Friday we had a pretty good. Well, you know what? My data here is screwed up because that's not right. We had a great move. It had a really good turn up through the most of the day, a little bit of a decline at the very end, and now in the overnight session, just kind of meandering there just below all-time highs. So I'll reload the data there in a bit, see if we can fix that. Treasury's feeling a little bit of pressure today, though. So I don't know if that's going to play in huge, but it is happening. You know, there's a range up in here was, some pretty dramatic moves. So to be below that now, I think is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. Oil feeling a little bit of pressure as things are just not going well in India. And so there's a lot of concern that just India alone could really upset this recovery that we're having. Gold and silver, they're not doing a whole lot. A little bit of a move down. It's so interesting. I don't really see any reason for gold and silver to move, but it seems like I'm always catching little moves coming in, and they're usually shorts. So, whatever. Copper doing really well, though. Copper always doing well. China alone supporting that one. The dollar just getting demolished on Friday, and then overnight quite a bit lower too. But we're back up to 90.83. So a dollar is still a key driver, though. If we continue to see dollar weakness, then I think we want to go short. Well, man, I must be getting allergies, man. I must be getting allergies because my nose just itches like crazy all the time. Okay, now Bitcoin, we got Bitcoin over here. Struggling since they lost that 6,000 and then 5,500 levels. They did have a little bit of a decline on Friday, again, piercing into 4,000 levels, but not really triggering like the big collapse. And then, here today, a little bit of a move up. And let's go over to CoinMarketCap. Because, oh man. Every day here, I'm like, man, Garlic coin, just doing crazy things, right? And now another wild move. Another wild move over the weekend. Look at this. Well, we were like 12 cents. Well, look at it that way. There you go. We were at like 12 cents, 11, 12 cents, and then a huge spike up to 30 cents at one point. Yeah, so probably some big whale came in there. This pattern that we're seeing right here kind of suggests to me that the whale was a little bit too aggressive, left a bit of a liquidity hole behind us. So we might get stuck in this area for a little bit unless another whale decides to just come in and bust it. But yeah, you can be careful. So maybe we need to have a little discussion over in the Garlic Coin subreddit. Anyways, so that's what we got going on here. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot that I brought up that 6J. I still feel like I want to incorporate it, but I don't know. Not quite sure how I want to do this. Lots of stuff to show. Not quite sure how to show it. Okay, well, let's come in and turn on the text-to-speech for you guys. And let's see here. We do have durable goods today, right? 1 minute 15 seconds. Yeah, durable goods orders, a pretty important piece of information. Dallas manufacturing auction. Auctions just all over the place, man. they really are issuing a lot of treasuries, huh? By the way, how's the volume? Is that a little too hot? Nah, I think that should be good. It seems okay. I'm not hearing any hiss, so I think we're okay. Maybe I should turn that up a little bit if I feel like it's too low in my monitor. Steven says fine. Well, I touched the button, but it probably still sounds fine, right? Probably don't even notice that I changed it. Okay. Yeah. Calafia, is that like a porn star? Looks like a porn star. Somebody's posting that in the Equity Indexes channel. Teaches finance. We haven't seen a top yet, boys. Porn stars teaching you how to trade, but we're not in a market bubble. Perhaps a little loud. Well, we can turn it down just a tad, shall we? Just a tad. Because otherwise you kind of get that little hiss background noise, right? We don't want that. There we go. Okay, so here's the news. Oh, my financial juice is not working. Okay, so here it comes in. It's spot 5 versus an expected spot 2, so that's pretty good. No market reaction at all, though. This is, you know what, though, they've kind of been doing this lately. It's like the market doesn't know what to do about it, and then it moves later. Yeah. I don't know if that's a straight buy, though, just because we're already kind of up in the equities. Patrick Boyle has a video out about the Bitcoin green revolution. Yeah, I don't think so, but okay. Yeah, no real reaction to that durable goods. Shall we go and read the report? I think that we should go do that because I find it a little strange that there wasn't more of a reaction to that. Latest release from the Census Bureau. Okay, here we go. Durgood.pdf. The Census Bureau continues to monitor response and data quality and has determined that estimates in this release meet publication standards. For more information, okay, so there's estimates in this number. New orders for manufactured durable goods in March increased 1.4 billion or 5% to 256.3 billion, the U.S. Census Bureau announced today. This increase up 10 of the last 11 months followed a 9% February decrease. Followed a 9% February decrease. Excluding transportation, new orders increased 1.6%. Excluding defense, new orders increased 5%. Fabricated metal products up 6 of the last 7 months led this increase 1.2 billion or 3.6% to 35.4 billion. So the government is a big part of the durable goods, eh? Shipments of manufactured durable goods in March, up 6 of the last 7 months, increased 6.4 billion or 2.5%. This followed a 3.6% February decrease. Unfilled orders for manufactured durable goods, up 3 consecutive months, increased 4.4 billion or 4%. This followed a 9% February increase. Fabricated metal products, up 11 consecutive months, led the increase, 2.3 billion or 2.8%. Oh man, do we need to buy metal things? First it was lumber, now it's going to be metals. Inventories of manufactured durable goods in March, up 2 consecutive months, increased 4.2 billion or 1%. This followed a 7% February increase. Non-defense new orders for capital goods in March decreased 3.7 billion or 4.7%. Shipments increased 1.9%. Unfilled orders increased 0.1 billion or virtually unchanged to 592.3 billion. Good morning, Keller. Revised seasonally adjusted February figures for all manufacturing industries were new orders 507.1 billion, revised from 505. Shipments 502.9, revised from 502.4. Unfilled orders 1.083.2 billion, revised from 1.082.3 billion, and total inventory is 702 billion, revised from 702. So not super huge revisions. Revised and more detailed estimates plus non-curable data will be published on May 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Blah, 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 blah. So, Oh, yes, I need to check. Isn't it, well, not today. But don't we have a webinar tomorrow? I'm wondering what I should do about that. If I should still stream, I guess I'll still stream and I'll just be watching that. Yeah, I have it. It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 7 a.m. I think what we should do is we should still stream and just maybe be a little bit more quiet than normal. Yeah, webinar. So if you go into Discord in the education channel, we have links. This is a CME group sponsored webinar on treasuries. And I believe these first two are going to be like on the basics of treasuries, and then there's four overall. So for the next 4 weeks on Tuesdays, we'll be watching a webinar. Statement from AstraZeneca in response to EU legal action. Taking legal action over the supply of COVID-19 vaccine. Well, I guess it's a Monday. Market's just not really interested in doing anything. What should we do with the 6J here? Well, I don't know if we're directly seeing correlations with it at the moment. I don't want it to be hiding, our ZB. So, I know, let's put it over here. I don't really use those columns in the 5-year too much. Kind of bothers me though. Could put it down here for now. Guess I'll do that. I'll put it down here for now. Along with this. Hey Pierre, how are you guys doing? Looks like we got everybody here bright and early on Monday. It's just, I don't know, man. I feel like the durable goods data was pretty okay. I guess durable goods is not usually a huge mover, but it just seems a little too quiet, don't you think? And given how they closed on Friday, I'm not 100% sure how I want to take it. Good morning, Uzi. Yeah, everybody, man. Saw Bitcoin dump to 48K over the weekend and now it's back up. Yeah. Was it 48? Well, let's come and look at a better chart. Did you look at the Garlic coin? Crypto Watch desktop. I would never install that. I don't trust them one bit. The issue, like installing the issue I have with installing any application crypto specific is I'm afraid that there's going to be like a miner built into it that'll suck your resources. Oh yeah, okay, so they got to 4,800. But see, look, it wasn't like, so they dipped again. They did another little dip before getting this recovery. The thing is I would say that this is pretty significant, given that we had 2 dips in a row. Also, all of the stuff going on over the weekend with like exchanges in Turkey, like a second exchange blew out, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's kind of more of that coming in some form or another. But yeah. So because it's the uptrend may still be intact as I guess what I'm getting at. Like it seems unusual to me to see 2 dips of that nature, but I'm not really seeing like widespread panic. I do see a lot of movement into altcoins is what I'm seeing. And so that's where I'm saying, did you see the Garlic coin, man? Did you see the Garlic coin? Because that is just getting this is just like blowing my mind, man. Just blowing my mind. Like, did they pass Dogecoin? They did. At one point, I think they did. At one point, they were worth more than, per coin, they were worth more than Dogecoin. Saw some coins cut into 3x. Wow, yeah. Well, like, with this one, look at that chart. If we go back to a 1 month, right? It's like, okay, wow, pretty good uptrend, and then whoop. But like it came back to it's coming back to the mean. I think we're okay. But you can see what happened there, right? Liquidity hole. So what is trading volume? 114,000. Wow. Did somebody really, there was 50,000? That was 50,000 worth of activity? Oof. Somebody came in. So basically we're getting really big whales coming through now, huh? That's what's going on here. Let's come over here and see What other news we got this week? Oh man, I'm feeling a little woozy this morning. I don't know what my deal is. Need to breathe. At the HBI tomorrow, FOMC Wednesday, Thursday, advanced GDP, Friday, core PCE, personal income, personal spending, Chicago PMI. Man, Friday is pretty economically packed, wouldn't you say? We're going to have to pay attention to this FOMC. And we've got to be watching these treasuries, seeing what they're doing, right? Ahead of the FOMC. Given that the move that we've seen so far this week in treasuries is down, it's a little ominous to me. But it's so early, it's so tepid, it probably doesn't mean anything. But I'm just going through the scenarios, like honestly, when you look at what the other central banks did, like what, last week, was it? Last week or the week before? They were all, I would say, slightly hawkish. Like their words were all very dovish, but some of their actions were a little hawkish, wouldn't you say? Yeah, I really need to breathe. I don't know what my deal is, but I just feel woozy. For Squawk tweeting that Bitcoin extends its gains and is now at 53,000. It's a pretty good recovery. 3K. Almost, 6% recovery today. That's pretty good. Oh, yes, it's a big earnings week this week, too. I'm just remembering here. CNBC reminding us we got all of the big techs this week, right? Do you ever look at options activity? Yes and no. So options activity is definitely something that's important to look at, and it's definitely something that we factor into our trading from time to time. It is not something that I actively have on my screen and watch tick by tick. I'm much more of at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, just take note when it gets mentioned where the options are at. So I don't really have data to be able to be watching order flow and options, and I'm not so sure that I really see a strong reason for them to do anything crazy. So it's like watching it tick by tick. I'm not sure that that's really useful. Zero Hedge asks, will crypto weakness push silver higher? Yeah, I wish. I own some silver. What specifically do you look for at your end of day? Everything. Hold on a second. So, the thing is that you want to be, or at least the approach that I take, is that you want to be an informed trader, right? So always, I'm going to be looking for a piece of information that I can trade off of that not everybody knows, right? And so I will go in, read news. Zero Hedge is a great place. CNBC is a great place. All of the financial media, really. Twitter. And I'm just trying to read everything that I can about how the market is moving. Now, the options gamma in particular, is a thing that gets discussed quite a bit. So I don't necessarily have to actively look for it. It kind of comes to me, but that particular piece of information. Jacob says, I got a TradeStation account and I'm extremely disappointed with their indicator suite automation and backtesting. Then I dove into NinjaTrader and I'm impressed. What are your thoughts about NinjaTrader Auto? Well, that's interesting. So first of all, TradeStation is an older platform, right? TradeStation were really the first ones to really have backtesting and that sort of stuff in it. And I've never tried it myself, but I've always heard that it was solid. You're the first person that I've had come in and like actively say that they didn't like it. Sal says, have you checked out or heard of Spot Gamma? Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you can afford to pay for that service, I would say it's probably worth it, especially if you trade options. But I usually hear enough about it and where the gamma is kind of sitting that I don't feel like I need to pay for that, you know? So anyways, so NinjaTrader automation. So the first thing is I would say that NinjaTrader has a really great platform to develop with. There are so many difficult things that they have done for you. There are certainly pitfalls. You will find people come in and complain about NinjaTrader's backtesting, just like you probably will find them complain about anything. And that's because there are things about backtesting that you just have to know, you know, like they can't do for you, right? Like, how do you deal with data snooping biases, right? Only you can handle that. The software can't do that for you. Or like another common one is you come in and you start using a bunch of indicators that, quite frankly, kind of are really designed to deceive users into making them think that they're seeing something when in reality it's changing past data to kind of conform to what ended up happening. So when you try and trade auto trading off of something like that, you basically get an algorithm that sees into the future in a backtest, and that's a big no-no, right? Okay, what data and brokerage do you? Well, so I am using right now, I'm using AMP Futures as my broker with Rhythmic for data. So Rhythmic is pretty solid. I would say that Rhythmic or CQG, they're both pretty good. I really like Rhythmic though, because they give you so many levels of depth. CQG is catching up. So I'd say that they're probably pretty close on par now. Yeah. Jacob, I have a video coming where I'm going to talk a lot more about these sorts of issues. I was recording it. I didn't do a very good recording it, so I'm going to try one more time. I keep promising you guys are going to have this video. But the other thing was that when I started going through it, I realized this is not just one video. So I'm going to make it a 4-part video, three or 4-part video. Where I talk about all that stuff. I'm going to talk about how you decide, how you do your research, how you decide which ideas to go into, things that you need to keep in mind when you're building it, and things that you need to keep in mind when you're testing it, and the whole process. So, okay, so now Stick is saying something interesting about the fat tails. The way you explain fat tails seems to be wrong according to Taleb's newest video, where in just 5 minutes, he boils it down and really clarifies the definition. Most people are wrong about what they're saying. So I haven't seen that one yet. I did see the one where he was talking about standard deviation and how what we think standard deviation is not really what it is. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe my understanding of, you know, what a fat tail is a little bit wrong. So we're talking about, like, when I come in and I say we have a distribution, and normally a normal distribution would be something like this, and a fat tail distribution is more like this. Potentially. No, not a little bit. It's like the opposite. Or is it that, or are you saying that it's like a fat tail is like, this will come out like this, but the fat tail one will be like, come out way longer? I don't know. So I've never dove in. When we're getting into some of the more advanced statistics stuff, that's a little bit of that I'm just barely getting into. I just, you know, I've made a lot of histograms off of data, and you tend to see these sorts of things where it's like the number of, well, like here, I'll show you a good example. what I thought a fat tail was. I heard Janet Yellen proposed an 80% tax on. I didn't hear that. Hold up. I think I may just be feeling a little bit woozy because of my stomach doing, stuff. So this is a distribution of the daily range. And you'll see that you get this thing where it's like, yeah, there is clearly a point. And remember, this is a logarithmic scale that you're looking at here. So yeah, there is kind of like there is a spot that's like the most common. But then the number of data points that you're going to get that are just like really high is way more than what you would get in a normal distribution. Do you eat breakfast? Always eat breakfast, yeah. Wouldn't say it was the best breakfast for me today, but I had banana, oatmeal, and bacon. Bill Gates are rare, but has most of the money distribution. Well, I have to look at that then. See what it says. What he says. I still do Olympic weightlifting, yes. Although I would say, and certainly not, I'm not in the best shape at the moment, just because I'm like, I haven't been going super hardcore. Like, I worked out 3 days last week, but normally I would work out 4 days a week, right? It's that sort of a thing. So a minority of what you put in makes up most of it. Okay. So when I talk about that, you get these distribution where, the amount that's out here is like way more than you'd expect. That must be called something different. You have these extremely rich people who make up a majority of the wealth, but you have billions of poor. Well, that might be the case too. So like, if you have a distribution of wealth, right, it's going to be something like, actually, I don't know. I would think that it would be pretty steep right there. So you get something like this is the median. And then, this is like the top 1%, right? So if this is number of people that make X much, then yeah, this is, you get a pretty thin, I would say, like, this probably does follow a fairly normal distribution. But when you actually add up the, like, how much money these guys have compared to how much money these guys have, this is so far out on the scale this way compared to everything else that these guys actually end up owning 50% of the money. Sure. So if you're just doing like a frequency diagram, you might get a normal distribution, but the returns are like up here, maybe. Either way, like the thing that I continually find is that the stats like all balance themselves out to be like, everybody thinks that, you just need to come in and like find a movement that is outside of the norm and that's it. And the issue is that the market knows that there's going to be these certain data points that are outside of the norm, and they've kind of already priced it in, the risk reward for it. So if it's something that doesn't happen very often, there's more money to be made or lost on it, versus if it's something that happens very often, there's less money to be made off of it. I'm no expert. Well, so one thing that you should keep in mind with what Nicholas Taleb is doing on his channel is he is criticizing studies on intelligence. He's basically saying to people that say, the studies say that some races are smarter than others, or, you know, nonsense like that. That this is all based on a misunderstanding of the statistics behind it. And that when you really get into the statistics, it's not irrelevant information. That the studies haven't really shown anything of the sort. You're reading stats, and yeah, those might be real stats in terms of what averages and standard deviations are and things like that. But because you don't understand what a standard deviation is correctly, you're misinterpreting those numbers and you think that it's more important than it is. That was kind of my takeaway from those videos. Yeah, they're short videos. They're like 5 minutes. He needs a better chalkboard. He needs to come and get my chalkboard, man. Hey, Nicholas, come and get my chalkboard. I'll give it to you. I mean, I want to keep my chalkboard, but, you know, for you, I would let you have it. Zero Hedge tweets, Kathy Wood's bloated ARK ETF surges forward. On Tuesday, President Biden is expected to announce that the CDC has updated its guidance for wearing masks outdoors. So I guess that is suggesting that they're going to say that vaccinated people don't need to wear masks outside. Is a tick chart better than a traditional time frame in minutes? What's your opinion? So how do I put this? I'm probably the wrong person to ask on this one, too, because my opinion, generally speaking, is that the ability of past data, particularly price data, is very limited in its ability to make predictive forecasts of the future. Right? So when it comes to a chart, what is it that you really want to see in your chart? Well, the thing that matters to me the most is just the actual price movement. I want to notice right away that prices moved up or down, and how other correlated instruments have moved in response. Excuse me. See, It's because of what I ate, probably. Maybe I didn't eat enough. So like my digestive system is trying to equalize out. So anyways, I'm primarily interested in how things have moved. So this is why, it keeps disappearing, but I have the market analyzer up because I want to keep track of what's moving and what's not and how they move in response to each other. That's also why when I come in, I do look at my charts, I like to have these, when I scrub across the timeline, it will show me where it was against all of these so that I can come in and I can say, okay, the treasuries moved up here. The treasuries have reverted quite a bit since the open. Where did it come from? Was there a reason for that? Well, I can see silver moved in course, in tandem with it. Here's silver up here in the upper left. Silver moved up as the treasury yields moved up. But did we see an aggressive move in any of the currencies? No, we didn't. So it looks like an isolated move, right? So that's what I'm looking at. And so I use indicators and so forth that show that the most, right? And then it kind of gets into quantization errors because if you're doing indicators and you're trying to trade off of an indicator, right? Like say you're using the RSI, and so your question is, which time frame should I use for my RSI? Should I use volume charts? Should I use tick charts? Well, you're talking about quantization, right? Depending on how you split the data out, the entries that you're going to get are going to be slightly different. And there's actually been a little bit of research on this. This is a really good expert on this topic is Euler. He wrote a couple of books and he's made like a lag compensated oscillators and things of that nature. And indicators that compensate for quantization effects as well. Because his take is basically that quantization effects are essentially noise that you want to eliminate because they lag your indicators. Makes sense? Wall Street Journal tweets, I'm beginning to see a slow movement of more employers looking to require it. Employers are starting to mandate COVID-19 vaccines before candidates are hired. It's a new rule that some managers are rolling out for existing employees too. Nobody saw that one coming. You also see more smoother and nicer predictable movement on a tick chart when you're using a whole moving average. Well, so I've done some back testing on it. And if you see my video about moving averages where I basically found that a whole moving average was really effective, or at least it was the most effective for using a crossover strategy as moving averages are typically used, but it was basically break even. Did you sleep well? That's like, yeah, I don't know. I got to bed at a decent time, but I did wake up a bunch of times over the night. You kind of missed earlier. I was saying I'm feeling a little woozy today again. I don't know if I ate enough for breakfast or what, but... Strong bid showing up at 12 in the 10-year. I'm not so bad like I was that one day where I felt like I was going to pass out, but I'm definitely feeling like, oh. I think part of it, though, is like I was saying, I think a lot of it is the food is moving through my guts and it's not particularly happy. So I'm detecting a hint of dollar weakness coming in. And that seems to be creating some bullish action for the E-mini again. Have ginger? Nah. Uzi like lightheaded. Rain outside in Utah, apparently. Well, that's good because it's way too dry out here. And they tick up 12, half, and 13 now. Strong bid. Interesting. Well, that must just be from the auctions coming up, I guess. My entire weekend was a little like that. Maybe I should just take a nap. Good grief. I know that's not what you guys want to hear about, but it literally was foggy all weekend for some reason. Yeah, okay. You know what I did this weekend? I watched Mortal Kombat. Did you guys watch the new Mortal Kombat movie? Huh. Yeah, that's a little bit how I feel right now, Uzi. I mean, like, I feel like I could trade if I really wanted to, but I would be really distracted. You know what else is I've had? Well, that's interesting. So I got bit by a mosquito. At least I think it was a mosquito. And it like really swelled out. I can honestly say it never crossed my mind to watch Mortal Kombat. Yeah, so there's a new Mortal Kombat movie out this week, and you can watch it on HBO Max, and I think you can watch it in theaters, right? As a regular movie, it was kind of okay, but as a Mortal Kombat movie, I thought it was great. Haven't watched a movie in 4 years? Wow. At all? Huh. Do we have any earnings here before the bell? Linux, nothing's important. Are you home alone? No. Wife and kids are here. Last time I did kind of sit down on the ground and I felt a little better. Maybe I should do that. Would you trade NQ? Well, with volatility becoming more constrained, it might make sense to trade NQ again, but it still moves a lot just because they're all so high, right? Yeah, I'm going to sit down for a little bit. still muted, sorry. Yeah, I laid down because I was starting to feel a little bit of a hot flash. But now I feel cold. Now I'm cold. By the way, little bit of Japanese yen going down. The Treasury is not basically ignoring it. So it seems like the euro is more important to the dollar right now. And, we were getting a little bit of downward movement there, but then, look, it snapped back up pretty easily, so. It could end up just being a really quiet day today. I don't know, guys. Are you going through metapause? I don't know what my deal is. Every once in a while it'd be like this. And maybe it's a certain thing I'm eating or something. I don't know. We'll have to look at it. Could just be a reaction to not getting enough. Maybe the food that I did eat wasn't right. You know? Need eggs or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a busy week this week, right? We get big earnings. We get PCE. Why is Zero Hedge talking about CPI? We don't get CPI. Hey, Stick, where'd you go? Or welcome back. I mean, he did tell us that he was going to be gone, right? Yeah, CPI is not till May 12th. Maybe you develop a food allergy or something. Well, one thing I did eat that was unusual was milk caramel. So you're saying a fat, so let's see here. No, I think my understanding of it is correct. A fat tail distribution is a probability distribution that exhibits a large skewness or kurtosis relative to that of either a normal distribution or an exponential distribution. It's about them being more powerful, but it's I think that the definition of it being a fat tail is that the distribution is this, and the tails. Well, here, look, they have pictures. Right here on Wikipedia. A fat tail definitely has to do with the distribution in relation to, so like this right here. But I think that what maybe Taleb is trying to say is that a consequence of a fat tail distribution is that, if, for instance, this is a distribution of range, right? Then when you look at profits, amount of profits that you make from that range, that the more profits are being made over here than they are over here. But I don't think that that's like the definition of it, right? Yeah. Okay. Wait, what? Oh, okay. So, anyways, back over to here. Something I was going to do that I forgot to click was, okay, so the biggest earnings release today is Tesla. Tesla has an earnings call today. Ugh. The inconsistency between the evidence of fat tails and the ongoing dominant usage of conventional markets is plausibly a major source of inefficiency and trading opportunities. Yes. Yeah. So I think that, let's back it up. So for instance, what Nicholas is saying, or Nassim is his first name, right? Oh, SSRN, the dangerous disregard of fat tails in finance. Let's go. Oh wait, is that him that made that? Let's see. Oh, that's not. I thought that was SSRN. That's SSSV. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the way that I would explain it is this. If you go in and you look at, Bollinger Bands, for instance. Bollinger Bands are basically work off of the principle that you should be able to make money on a mean reverting behavior, and that if you get price that moves sufficiently far away from the average, outside of a standard deviation of the average, that you're likely to come back. And when you go through and you actually do like back test this sort of a strategy, what you're going to find is that that's correct, that the majority of the time that it does revert, but that this distribution has a fat tail, which means that the number of times that it goes past that line and the amount that it goes past that line is so much that it basically destroys the expectancy of the system. You can't do a regression on a distribution that is fat-tailed. Oh, well, so that's a different thing, but yeah. So now I don't know what alternatives that he suggests for fat tails. I'd be super interested in that. But I think that the point that he's always been trying to make is that all of the stats that they're trying to use in these quant systems will work most of the time, and then when they stop working, they'll just get absolutely demolished, right? That those tails end up happen more than you expect, and when they do happen, you lose more than you expect. And that's why you get like these massive, I don't want to say massive, but like you'll get a bunch of hedge funds blow up all at the same time. It's because they're all running off of the same inefficiency and they don't account for fat tails. Now, how Taleb proposes that we deal with fat tails, I don't know, but it's kind of one of those things that if you've been going through all of the data, I think that you kind of intuitively understand that, yes, some of these data sets have skewness in them, but that it ultimately doesn't help you because the market still has a way, even if there's a strong skew to something, the market still has a way of making the expectancy of that system come out to break even. My nose itches so bad. I'm surprised that I'm not itching my leg. My leg feels fine. Okay, so there's the open, and even on the open, it's incredibly tight. So, man. Yeah. I mean, there's a decent amount of volume, and it was long. Do you ever nose cleanse in the shower? You said in this other video you can't use the tallest mountain you've ever seen as a baseline for hedging. Suck a bit of water up there and snot rocket it out. Well, I think the reason that my nose is itching so much is because I had that nose surgery, and afterwards your nose tends to be a little dry. So I think it's a little dry, and there's probably something in the air that's triggering an allergy of some sort, you know? Little trick I learned while exploring the voodoo ritual. I've never heard of that. That sounds weird now. Okay, Dollar just getting creamed here on the open, by the way. So that's probably good for long. If I was feeling a little bit more up to it, I think I would have gone long there. Yeah, I don't think that it needs to be drained. I think I just need a moisturizer up in my nose.
Block by.
In the human body, there's an overcompensation effect. I don't know if that applies here, though. I'm definitely getting some super compensation from my workout. My workouts this week. Wooziness going away a little bit. Like, my body feels good. My body feels strong. Oh, it's definitely something with my gut. I'm kind of feeling it coming into the different bend. It's coming over here on my left side, which means it's stuff that's just barely coming in. Like, I might think that I I hope this doesn't sound gross to talk about, but I think that what's happened is didn't really have much of anything in my colon, and now that I've eaten, some of that food is coming out of the small intestines and into the large intestines, and as it does, there's, those colon is a little bit inflamed, so as it comes in, it kind of has to push things out, and then that's what makes me feel kind of nauseous and sick. Yep. Man, I'm sorry if I'm not like super interesting today, but I just don't feel very good. On the distribution thing, I think that it applies very much to what I'm trying to do, right? Because one of the things that I've been getting into has been like statistical arbitrage systems, and looking at these systems, I'm noticing there's some problems. And apparently a lot of even statistical arbitrage firms. So I'm seeing this come up over and over again. And it's like, I never heard of this, but like they'll come in and they'll say, so like it's better example is in the treasury futures. So like apparently a lot of high frequency trading, market making style robots got totally burned and left the market at one point. In the futures in particular. And so the futures are a little different compared to equities because of those HFTs are gone. And apparently it's the same thing with statistical arbitrage, that like it worked really well for a while and then there's a lot of competition, but then there's like these distributions and so forth that they're not able to deal with. So the guys that are still around have like really sophisticated systems with multiple layers. And I think that means that there's more opportunities for us in those areas. Treasury's still up there pretty high though, too. By the way, it doesn't look like my algo I guess it's just not getting extreme enough readings. ZB struggling with Friday's RTH value high. Isn't it a little insane that we're back up there? I'm just showing what I learning and telling and learn here, yeah. No, I don't think the ace is going to be coming back stick. If you go back to that day, he posted an email address and you can contact him, but I don't think he's going to come back to the stream. It seems to me like he mostly wanted to talk about his little signal, and when I was kind of like, you gotta be careful about inducing other people to trade, he was like, well, if I then don't want to stick around. So I already shorted the congestion between 1108 and got 3 ticks. Oh, right there. I don't get it. I just say though, for the benefit of everybody here, you are treading on dangerous ground when you start giving people direct recommendations. But I think that you're okay to say, okay, I'm doing X. This is why I'm doing X. This is why I think it's a great trade. And as long as everything that you're saying is true or you believe, you're fine. But when you start coming into things like you should trade X, you should do X this way, you're starting to tread on dangerous ground, particularly when it comes to an individual trade, right? Because what can happen is they lose money and then they can turn around and they can say, well, Ace told me that I should take that trade. He induced me to trade. You gotta be careful with that one. Don't want anybody to get slammed by that. And with the whole GameStop recently, that regulators are going to be more on the lookout for that sort of a thing, right? Okay, well, I was saying earlier, I probably would have bought somewhere around that 79 area. Yeah, we got a little bit of a move, but not much up. So big thing is, if I had taken that one, I better have my auto targets on here. And if I'd gotten the right spot, maybe I would have gotten out already.
Block buy.
Yeah, I'm trading that 31.25 a tick. I wouldn't curse anyone with my trades. Follow me and you'll die. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Weird stuff, in my opinion. But I don't really want to think about it anymore. There's nothing much else to say, right? Stick says, Seth, I really like your thought on trading major news with how the market cannot price this information in immediately due to the size of the market, and also because algos can't have an opinion. Yeah. It's like, how do you program into the algorithm that there's a piece of news that's about to come out, and here's how you need to factor that into your algorithm and stuff? I'm sure that somebody has done some systems that kind of take that sort of a thing into account, but I don't think that it's going to be anywhere as good as a human, especially not in this pandemic period where you might just see really weird stuff. So I'm not going to say that if you trade off of news that you're sure to make money, but what I am saying is that it is a potential source of edge that retail traders tend to ignore, that I personally think has pretty good history, Is history the right thing? I feel like falling asleep, man. My eyes want to close. Now, this whole thing with Taleb and the statistical consequences of fat tails, I think that he's right as well, that there's a source of inefficiency in the market that you could make money off of, that, because of these distributions. The issue with that one, though, is that those inefficiencies, one, are going to be higher time frame inefficiencies, and two, they aren't going to happen as often. So it's probably not the best basis for a day trading strategy, right? Probably a better basis for a day trading strategy is to utilize a mean reverting sort of behavior that you can make money off of every day, and have risk management that factors in these fat tails and into the way that your risk management works, which I think is where I've always run into issues, right? I will have a really good run and then a volatility event occurs and I don't handle it well and I blow out because I'm not factoring in the fat tail distribution well enough. I want to sleep. Why? I don't want to sleep. I want to be wide awake. Yeah. Well, in the end, since we've started trading, this is ending up to be like a good 10-point move almost. India is getting slammed with COVID. It's crazy how the spam calls legit stop when India has. Yeah, I didn't even consider that. I still get spam calls. I get spam calls from people in Utah. I get local scam. It's really bad. And Utah, like, is statistically the highest state for this sort of a thing. So I feel like it actually attracts more people, you know? Calls go from 2 to 3 a day to 0? Really? Man, you see, like, I was like falling asleep there, man. I want to take a nap. What's wrong with me, guys? You know what? Maybe I'm catching something. Yesterday, so interesting that I'm watching the baby over the weekend. And you know, I didn't really need my parents. I've been doing stuff with my parents every weekend while my wife is gone, but this week there wasn't like really any yard work. It was kind of yucky outside, so I just kind of stayed to myself, didn't call them or anything. And then on Sunday they called me and they're like, well, we made food and Dad wants to watch Mortal Kombat, so you should come over. So I'm like, okay, we'll come over. So the baby, Asher, he'd been playing around and he'd been just fine, but he was, I would say, relatively mild, you know, today. And so we get over to my parents' house and he just wants to sit on the couch and watch the movie, which I'm like, oh really? Mortal Kombat. So the movie where we're like slicing people in half and also, you know, ripping hearts out and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And that's the first, and that's when you finally want to sit and watch a TV screen for a little bit. Like, what the heck? Of all the movies that you would decide to suddenly be interested in movies, you choose Mortal Kombat? What? So I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, okay, maybe he's a little sick. Maybe we didn't, you know, maybe his nap schedule, maybe he's just growing a lot. Like, I don't know. Like, what's the deal, right? And then we fed him. And after dinner, he had so much energy. It's like after dinner, so much energy. And I'm like, But now I'm feeling a little woozy and I'm thinking, well, maybe he actually had something and I caught it and I'm kind of getting over it now, you know? I have not had nor needed a car for over 2 years now and they still call me when? Oh, man. The whole car thing is kind of funny. Like, it really is. Like, I've barely used my car. Probably put a couple of years of life left on my car now because of that. See, 83 was the spot where I needed to get to have gotten it. So I guess I could have gotten it. Yeah, it don't matter. They buy and sell banks of phone numbers on FB. If you're there, you're in there. Oh my gosh. So there's this guy. And I never really considered him like a guy that I would like really trust or anything. But he was in politics. So I knew him from the rave scene. And he was in politics. Okay. And they put this guy in charge of the technology for the Republican Party. Okay. And he totally abused it. Like he was doing it and giving the list of all of the delegates to people and not, it wasn't like a public thing. So they're only giving it to certain people and using it to push FUD over issues that the delegates felt really strong. So in particular, like over funding. So they wanted to, so there's this whole law over how the Republican Party picks its candidates in Utah. And the legislature made a rule that mandated a certain structure for you to choose your candidates. And they said, well, that's breaking freedom of association. The Utah Republican Party can choose its candidate in any way that it wants. So there was this big court case, and the Republicans really wanted to go through it. I really don't agree with the way that court case came out, but I believe that they ended up dropping it. But, so there's this whole argument because the people that didn't really want that, they kind of liked the new system, were kind of trying to stop the lawsuit and everything, right? So this guy was using his power as the technology guy to his advantage in that political fight. And it was really, really dirty, right? And then he sold the data. So if you were on those delegate lists, you get all of the worst calls. And like I said, it's like I get scam calls from people, from numbers that appear to be here in Utah. And I get several a day. Yeah. I get several a day. I've gotten to the point where if I don't recognize the number, I just don't pick it up. And that dirtbag sold our private information. It makes me mad. They didn't get stuff before that. You were talking about mean reverting strategies being best when day trading rather than fentanyl. Have you considered NADEX contracts for mean reverting trades better risk management? So not too familiar with that. What would make them better in that respect? They do a lot of spoofing. Many times they'll spoof a number that resembles yours. Typically, people are more likely to answer in that case. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, there's a petition in this case. Sign if you want your voice heard. Petition started to remove Attorney General Sean Reyes for joining the Utah with Texas election. Yeah, so here's the thing: the Republican establishment in Utah, and when I say the Republican establishment, I mean the group of Republicans that are all like cocktail party Republicans and hate this kind of shift that the party has had over the years towards a more of a working class party, towards a more working class and populist party, that those kinds of Republicans. And we're talking pre-Trump, okay, because these were guys that weren't very there was this huge battle in the Tea Party stuff too, right? This predates Trump. And they've kind of tried to drag Trump into it, but it didn't really. It was dumb. Okay, they kind of tried to drag Trump in it, but those national guys don't understand what's going on. So there are these guys that are the cocktail party Republicans are having a problem in Utah because the selection process has always been done through caucuses. So the people that are really politically engaged in the community were the ones that were becoming the delegates, selecting all of the party leadership, and then going to the convention and selecting their person, right? And this all came to a head when Bennett got removed. And what is his name? Became the new senator in Utah. Okay. Senator Bennett's biggest claim to fame is that during the Obamacare fight, he came in and he said, well, I think that there should be a mandate. There should be an insurance mandate. Everybody should have to have insurance. And that's how you ensure that, everything works. Right. He was the one that brought that up because the hoity-toity Republicans had always wanted that because that's what the industry insiders wanted, right? That's what their lobbyists wanted. So here again, it's the cocktail party Republicans. Okay. So Bennett did that, and it completely undermined the Republican negotiating position for Obamacare and essentially led to the individual mandate being put in place. With me so far? So, people in Utah were obviously incensed about that. And so all of the Republican activists went in and said, well, that was not okay. We're going to get rid of you. Right? And that's how Mike Lee became senator of Utah, was that they went to the convention and Mike Lee defeated Bennett at the convention. So, you got this issue. Because all of these cocktail party Republicans are like, well, if this had gone to a general election, then Bennett would have won. Right? Yeah, maybe. The thing is that the general public was not quite so aware of what Bennett was, the role that Bennett had played. And if it had gone into a primary fight, would that have come up and would he have lost anyways? It's possible. So we don't really know. I don't think that people realize how controversial and upset people were at the time, right? But the argument has been that, these populist candidates wouldn't be able to get in if it wasn't for the caucus system. So what did they do? They do what the establishment always does. Everybody says that it's a liberal thing, but it's really not a liberal thing. It's the establishment thing. When they're not winning, change the rules. So they come in and they say, well, we think that we should have a system more like what California has. Why would you want the system to be more like what California has? So what is that? Well, pretty much anybody that petitions, that wants to run for office and gets enough petitions, it gets on the ballot and will be in the primary. And then they kind of had this weird compromise where there's still a convention, but the convention doesn't really matter because you can skip the convention. And so that's basically what happened in Utah. And that's why there was that huge lawsuit. So then there's these people that say, Sean Reyes shouldn't have, because Sean Reyes was kind of involved in that. And Sean Reyes was kind of involved in the lawsuit with Texas. And so there's this group of people, these cocktail party Republicans. Let me tell you what, Sean Reyes is probably the best attorney general we've had. He has done a good job. So much he has done, all of this stuff that happened under the Trump administration relating to human trafficking. Sean Reyes played a significant role in all that. He is a smart guy. I think that if he really wanted to and he made the right decisions, that he could be governor. It's the guy that's governor right now. It's like, well, I am. What the hell? Okay, whatever. But what really comes down to is this, individual people, if you had the opportunity to have the candidate there in your home, talk to him, ask him the questions about the issues that matter to you the most, the values that matter to you the most, and just have the opportunity to see if this guy is really on the ball and knows what he's doing or whatever, right? they would not vote for the establishment candidate. It's almost always the case that the establishment candidate is not really all that capable, but that they have money. And when you get into a primary level fight, the media attention is almost all that matters. It's almost all that matters. And so this is how you get things like Mitt Romney, where even if everybody in Utah hates Mitt Romney now, there's no way that you would ever get him out of office, right? Because of the name recognition alone. So they want to move the fight to a place where they have advantage, where they can use their money to win. Instead of the caucus system where you don't use your money, you have to talk to everybody and you have to present a good case when you're talking to everybody. They don't like that, right? So I digress. That's what that's all about, Win. Mike Lee is wicked smart. I listened to him on the Jordan Peterson podcast for an hour and a half. I have absolutely no idea if what he discussed was true or false, smart or good idea, or just pushing a party line, but he made good sense. Yeah, he is pretty smart. He's not a pushover. He hasn't always made the right decisions, but I tell you what, it really bothers me these days that people don't trust the process. You know what I mean? So I did a rant on my TikTok account the other day because somebody was saying taxation was theft, and then the other person came in and they said no, taxation is the price of admission. Like that's the thing that you have to do to pay us to live in this wonderful country. And I'm like, no, that's not it. There's not like some prerequisite thing. No, it's a mutual agreement that we've made. There was a 16th Amendment. 2/3 of Congress ratified it, and then it was sent to the states, where 42 of 48 states at the time ratified the amendment to allow the collection of income taxes. And that's how so it's not theft. It is an agreement that we've all made, unless you don't believe in the Constitution anymore. But that's what I'm getting at, is like, you either believe in the Constitution and trust the process, or you don't, right? And there's these groups of people that don't like the process. They want to change it. It's a social contract, is what you're trying to say. Yeah, well, it's if you believe in the Constitution, then you believe that all of the process to adding amendments to the Constitution is correct, and then therefore you believe in and will uphold and support all of the amendments that have been legitimately added, and the 16th Amendment is one of them. So yes, if you believe in the Constitution, then you implicitly agree to be taxed by income according to what Congress decides. Yeah. So it can't be theft because you've agreed to it, unless... And if you're saying that you haven't agreed to it, then what you're really saying is you don't believe in the Constitution. What I really want to know is who keeps voting for Ted Cruz. They say he is the most hated man in Washington. His own neighbors outed his vacation. Well, no. So the thing that you got to realize over there, Winston, is that the Texas kind of has a strange distribution, right? Texas has a couple of really big cities, and those really big cities are very liberal. Some of them are nauseatingly liberal and scare the whole rest of the state. So the whole like liberal versus conservative thing, fight is alive and well in Texas. But Texas kind of has something else a little bit unique, and that is that there are just so many small towns there. It's like literally every few miles there's a new small town along the roadway, and it just goes across. It's not like that in the rest of the Midwest, except for maybe in Chicago, right? So you end up with so many people in the rural areas compared to the cities that it still stays conservative. So if you live in the city, then yeah, you're a conservative. Yeah, your neighbors are going to hate you because they're going to be very liberal. But I would say he's still quite popular. And the other thing that I don't think that the people on the left really understand is how effective Ted Cruz has been at the media game. Like, he's always in the center of these like Twitter wars, and I don't know if it's him or if it's somebody on his staff that does all of these things, but he's always getting in fights with AOC, for instance, and the conservatives love it. He stands a good chance of being the Republican presidential nominee at some point. I think that he stands a very strong chance. I believe in the Founding Fathers' wisdom that when they wrote the Constitution, they may not have anticipated social media, but they read Plato. I do not trust today's politicians to think ahead as they do. Well, this whole issue is that back then they had to think forward because like a government that they thought was good and effective didn't exist. Whereas now today, for most politicians, we believe that the United States system is pretty good. Of course, there is this group of people, mostly young millennials and Gen Z now, that are kind of rejecting the whole idea of capitalism and essentially of the United States government as it is today. And so they're trying to come up with all sorts of new ideas. But the issue is that their new ideas aren't really new ideas, and they're like the worst ideas, right? Otherwise, maybe we would get people that are forward thinking. You know what I mean? History shows us that something like the insurrection in January occurs. The first time is not successful, but someone watches in 15 years. Nah. So first of all, it wasn't really an insurrection, right? So did you see this report that, the Department of Homeland Security and the police there tried really, really hard to come up with conspiracy charges, and they did this big investigation, and they were like, raiding people's homes and arresting people and all of this stuff. And then in the end, nobody got charged with conspiracy, and they admitted that there was no conspiracy. So what really happened? There was Donald Trump had a rally. In the rally, Donald Trump told people to go and make their voices heard peacefully. And before he was done with his speech, some people were able to get into the Capitol. They believed that they were being allowed to go into the Capitol, as protests in the past had happened. And so when they went into the Capitol, some people behaved badly, like stealing Nancy Pelosi's podium and so forth, and really just kind of pushing their luck in terms of where they could get to, and somebody ended up dying. But this idea that it was an insurrection or that it was an attempt to overthrow the government is absolutely ridiculous. There is no empirical evidence to really back this idea up. It was just kind of a spontaneous thing. Wait, no one has been charged? Yeah, so 6 people died. No. So there was another thing, was like they're saying that this police officer died from it, but he basically died of natural causes. It wasn't anything related to the riots. The only person that died as a direct result of the protests that day was the woman that got shot by the guard. And they say that the guard they didn't charge him with anything. I think that they should have, but they shouldn't have been there. You know what I mean? Like, I can totally see this situation being like, being out there and people wanting to get into the Capitol, and then the police like standing aside and letting them in, and everybody thinking that you can go in and it's fine. But sitting there and thinking, well, yeah, except for that, to ever get inside the Capitol, you have to go through this huge security and everything. And so I'm not going to go in. You know what I mean? It's like that. But the idea that it was like an organized rebellion is a huge exaggeration that is mostly the figment of the left media's imagination. There wasn't anything even close to like an insurrection. Because, like, honestly, if they were really going for an insurrection, the crowd would have, like, actually killed somebody, you know? They would have actually done something instead of just kind of quietly going into the rotunda and, you know, or orderly disorder or something. I don't know. This is the problem. I think it's a problem, to be honest with you, because there's still like walls up in DC and stuff, right? Like there's still this like we're terrified that something's going to happen and that the Republicans are going to try and overthrow the government, and it's not a good thing, because what they're really doing is they're using a irrational fear to implement policies and take power that they shouldn't be doing. So it concerns me. And I tell you what, if anything ever does happen, it will be because people got fed up with that manipulation, right? But it's not going to be like. So there were people that had pipe bombs. So I forget what the deal was with the pipe bombs. I think that they found pipe bombs, but I don't remember what happened with the pipe bombs. People calling for Mike Pence's head. So there was that whole thing about there's definitely people online that were upset with Mike Pence. Again, I don't really believe that his life was in danger. What I watched was horrific. No, listen, one person died, and it was a police officer that killed that person. Like, seriously. Okay. It's not even the first time that a crowd of people have broken into a portion of the Capitol complex and protested in there. And I mean, good grief, if you take this to the state level, people breaking into the state legislatures and protesting happens every year, it seems like these days. Happened last month. So the liberals came in and were protesting. What was it? Where was it? Was it in Wisconsin? Nah, I don't remember where it was. No, it was in Louisiana over the abortion thing, right? It happens all the time, Win. It really does. And just this idea that it was like this terrifying mob that was going to overthrow is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. This is a bunch of boomers being stupid. This is not anything. Okay. Why is it? I don't get this. Why is it that protesters coming in and stealing Nancy Pelosi's podium is like this huge threat to democracy? Okay. But people literally taking over a portion of a city and setting up what they call as an autonomous zone and having a warlord with armed guards basically taking control of a portion of a city for weeks at a time is not. Somebody explain that to me. That makes zero sense. You get what I mean? And it is relevant because the Republicans are not going down this direction that the left media says that it is. So when you come down into like midterms, because that is the Republican strategy, is the like straight up they've basically 100% said it and put out strategy documents. Their strategy is Republicans are trying to overthrow the Republic. Okay. And when it comes down to the midterms, people aren't going to buy it because they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, this is bullcrap. Right. Republicans still believe in the Constitution. Okay. And I think the Democrats are going to get schooled unless something changes. I was so shocked about that kid. Oh, right. In the Seattle Autonomous Zone. Yeah. That whole thing was really messed up. And I mean it's really down to the city leaders. Like, I can't believe that the city leaders just allow that. Holy crap. Like, as a mayor, do you not realize how, like, what a terrible political move you're making? Like, oh, okay, I'll just let them have a portion of my city. Like, what? At the very least, it makes you look weak. And all of those mayors are having trouble getting elected, right? Like, it's a problem for all of them. And yeah, here again, 6 people died. No, 1 person died as a direct result from the riots. All of the other people were basically like natural causes and like normal things. It wasn't as a direct result of the riots at all. So that the media vastly exaggerated what happened. And of course, I think that the public largely has bought into that, right? But the issue is that they're selling a narrative that's not true. That Republicans want to overthrow the government. This is not true. The reality is that Republicans don't think that the elections are secure. That's really what that comes down to, right? Essentially, it was just trespassing. Well, I mean, there was vandalism, right? There was some vandalism. As you would expect, right? If you get that large of a group in the rotunda that really shouldn't be in there, but if let's just say that the decision was made to allow the crowd in there and that they were able to be in there legally, you would still expect with a crowd that large and of that kind of political nature to see some sort of vandalism, wouldn't you? But that's where I'm saying, like, you guys realize, like let's flip this around, okay? If Antifa was doing protests and Antifa broke into the Capitol, it wouldn't have been a protester that died. All right? Like, I'm telling you right now. If Antifa was going to break into the Capitol and do something, they would have like this organized plan and they would be going out to do something. And there was this insinuation that that's what was happening with the Republicans. But like I said, they did all of the investigation, and conspiracy charges in particular were never made. There was no conspiracy to overthrow the government. It was just a spontaneous reaction of a crowd. We do not share the same news? No, we don't. Well, yeah, so like the thing is that when this happens... Okay, what was that? Hold on. I don't see anything on the scope or anything, but that was a little bit unusual of a spike down. Wow, that was a really, really unusual spike down, actually. Fitch downgrades China Hurong to BBB. Jessica Alba is on his company seeking $439 million in an IPO. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything coming out. It might be something that we're not aware of. Did see the Japanese yen take a little jump there. Other than that, though, I'm not quite sure where it's coming from. Okay, so what happens? So you guys are talking about two things, that, and then you're talking about the different foundations of people. The FBI never caught the pipe bomber, says Market Den. Okay. That's what I thought. My understanding about the pipe bomber was that there's been some sort of complication that makes it so that we can't really make conclusions off of that. Of course, people on the Donald think that it was all just like planted, but it's nonsense. So what happens is you have the initial story, and the news media will come up with a narrative, right? Listen, this isn't like conspiracy stuff. This is the way that the media works, and you got to understand this if you want to trade news, right? If you want to trade news, especially when there's political news, you have to understand this, okay? The media, their goal, their purpose is to make money. And the thing that makes money, the thing that will get people to watch something is a story, right? If it's just like information and raw information, like when I post on TikTok, I'm usually posting raw information. And yeah, some people like that information, but it's not like big thing. But if I come in and I share that information by telling you a story about something that happened to me or something like that, people sit and listen to it because they like stories, okay? So the news media and CNN in particular understand that you have to have a story, right? So what happens is, as the event unfolds at the very beginning, producer makes an executive decision that this is the storyline that we're going to portray with this news story to, get the views and watching it and everything, okay? This is why you always get these like taglines like America in crisis and whatever the thing is, whatever the tagline is for that event, right? Then what comes out is that obviously the storyline is not real, right? The storyline is just a decision to portray things in a certain way for the entertainment's sake. And so you will start to see material facts come out that are contrary to what the storyline is. And when that happens, those facts are suppressed. Or at least that particular news channel doesn't show them, right? So the storyline that the media went with that day was that this was an insurrection and that they were trying to take over the government. That's the storyline that they chose, okay? So then when a piece of information comes out later, such as last week, the law enforcement agencies coming out and admitting that they did not end up making any sedition or conspiracy charges against the protesters because they did not have evidence to support any kind of a conspiracy, okay? CNN will just ignore it. But if you're on any of the Republican blogs, they point that out immediately, right? So what's your takeaways from this? Okay. Well, first of all, if you're trading and whatever, and the primary source of information that you're relying upon for your trading or any kind of piece of news that you're trading off of is CNN, like watch out, because that's not what they do, That's why you really need financial news. CNBC, Bloomberg, etc., right? But number two thing is that you're going to have to watch a wide variety of sources. So I read everything. I read Republican blogs. I read a lot of very far left stuff on Reddit. I read a variety of newspapers. I see all of the major newspapers major headlines that come through on news stories like thought pieces and stuff like that. Even if I can't read it, because I can't read the Washington Post. I'm not going to pay for that. Okay, but at the very least, I see the headline and you can see like what is the narrative that they're pushing, right? So then there's that next thing is that you've got to be focused on empirical evidence always, right? Which is like, okay, so a piece of information, they're reporting something. How are they reporting it? What was the source of that reporting? What actually got reported? And ignore what they're saying about what it means or what the storyline is, right? And just focus on the empirical evidence so that you can make the conclusions, right? Reuters is the most trustworthy. They're pretty good. They're going to be changing soon, right? Because they're going to have a subscription service now too. But see, they've been struggling, and this is the whole issue, is that the news as we expect it to be, the news as should be good for trading, for instance, is not popular. It doesn't make the big bucks. What makes the big bucks is a headline with an inflammatory clickbait headline and a storyline that keeps them coming back for this over and over and over again. Yep. Market Den, I mentioned that, right? Officer Sicknick, the news outlets claimed that Officer Sicknick was murdered, but last week it was revealed that he died of natural causes, yes. And that was from the day one. There was controversy over that, and now it's only been 3 months later that they admit the truth. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Avoid anything owned by Rupert Murdoch. Well, I certainly wouldn't want any of those to be like your favorite news outlet, right? But the thing that you got to be careful about is that a big breaking story can come from anywhere, right? Because a lot of it is just like the person that had that information, which now news outlet did they most familiar with, who do they go to? You know, so you really have to watch a variety of news sources, or you're not going to get the full picture. And you got to remember things too, right? You have to say, what is the thing that actually matters here? What is like the actual empirical evidence that the reporting was based off of? And then what happens later? Because what most average people do is they just read the headlines on Facebook, and then they never see the correction headline or whatever the deal is. So then you have this worldview that's based off of a lie, and it just continues on and on and on and on. Whereas the rest of us, that where the news is actually like pertinent to our jobs and everything, and we're following this sort of thing, like we know that it's debunked. And then you come back years later, and it's like some people are still living in this fantasy world. Right? It'll get better. Do you think so? Like maybe a good example of where we might see stuff like this in the future is the whole Arizona audit, right? Because they're doing it. I don't know if they're gonna find anything or anything like that, but I'm gonna bet you something controversial comes out from it. Yeah. I've been reading that most people get their news on Facebook. I can't imagine why, but I'm not a Facebook now. Yeah. Well, it's like that Fat tells us. Like, you realize that those of us that are like super into news and are reading it like obsessively every day is a very small minority. It's like less than 1% of the population. And a good 50% of the population just doesn't really give a crap about the news at all. And frankly, they never would give a care about the news at all, except for when Donald Trump came along and it got shoved down everybody's throats. And it was like all anybody on Facebook ever talked about. Now that he's gone, they've gone back to like nobody has a clue what's going on because they just don't care. Of course, all of the news outlets losing a ton of money because of that too, but I've been kind of trying to avoid the politics to some extent, but this is kind of one that it's particularly pertinent to the way that we're trading, right? It's like you can choose to read that piece of news any way that you want, but the fact is that there is items about those particular storylines that have been reported, but not widely reported. Right? And you gotta wonder, okay, like when it comes to financial news, what are the things that aren't being reported? Like, where do you got to go and find those things? Right? It's like you're trying to find inefficiencies in the news. They exist. Now, as for the values thing, so here's the issue with that. Okay, I certainly have seen some studies that suggest that Republicans and Democrats have differing values and that there are things about people's personalities that can lead them to be more likely to be Democrat or more likely to be Republican. Democrats care a lot more about the values like fairness, whereas Republicans have like 5 dimensions of values that they look at, and fairness is probably the one that is valued the least in Republicans, right? There's edge in reading news, since how these articles and headlines are written makes it difficult for an AI to get information. So you need a human to understand so many nuances and languages. Yes. And we know that robots trade off of this stuff too, right? Like there's been studies about sentiment indicators. So in particular, the one that seems to have the most evidence is just like reading the headlines and using that to define a bias for whether it will be up or down that day. Okay, but there are also algorithms that straight up listen to the Bloomberg newsfeed. So this is what happened on Thursday, right? This story about the tax, it had been reported all over the place. But guess where the robot listens? The robot listens to the Bloomberg newsfeed. So finally, when it hit the Bloomberg newsfeed, several hours after the story had already been widely reported, then the robot comes in and goes, "Oh yeah, this is bad. We should sell." And then they oversold, right? Yep. Market gets it wrong all the time. There's so many inefficiencies around news, man, which can be an advantage to you, but it can also be a disadvantage to you just because, obviously lots of people get it wrong. Yeah. Okay. So there are certain personality traits and values and things that are going to lead you to be Republican or Democrat. Yes, but there's a couple of compounding factors in that, right? For instance, when was this? Can you link? No, I'm talking about last Thursday when the news that they're going to increase the capital gains tax hit the market, right? Okay. For instance, there are a lot of people that would be in one party or the other, but because of the way that they were raised and the location that they go along with the crowd and they think that they're Republican when they would really be more likely to be Democrat and this sort of a thing, right? Oh, you mentioned studies. I'd have to go and find it again. But if you just go and search for news on SSRN, you'll find studies about it. Trading news, you'll find studies where they talk about sentiment indicators. There's like 2 or 3. You'll find them really easily. But I don't want to go into that too much right now. I know it should read 25%, but it's skewed to most people not participating in this politics. Okay, yeah. So anyways, the issue is this. There's a certain group of people that are just pushing something insane. Okay. Like this is really the problem. Okay. So like when I look at the conservative versus the liberal, it's a thing. Obviously, it's a thing, but you know what? It's not just a thing, it's a necessary thing. Okay? You need people that are conservative, and you need people that are liberal. The actual, they have a lot in common. Okay? They have a lot in common. Both liberals and conservatives should believe in the Constitution. They might have things that they would like to change, but they believe in the Constitution. They believe in the form of government that we have and all of these things, okay? Both Republicans and conservatives, I would argue, should both believe in freedom, and that includes economic freedom, the ability to engage in transactions, to make money, to make your own success, right? They just have different emphases on it, right? The liberal believes more in the fairness. So the liberal is going to be concerned that the system is not set up very fairly for the worker. Ergo, we need to have power structures in the United States to fight against those. And that's unions, which I think would be great if unions, functioned well. Maybe there needs to be some changes made in laws around unions so that they can function well and don't get taken over by mobs. But I think overall, General unions would be a good thing. But that's a liberal thing, right? Okay, good idea. What did they do? They said, okay, this isn't fair. We should change this. It's a liberal thing, is you want to change things. And so they propose a change. And what does the conservative person come in and say? The conservative person comes in and says, okay, well, sometimes we can do things that change and we do need to progress, but we shouldn't do so at the expense of the good things that we already have. And when we do implement new things, we should have a considerable amount of evidence that it works, and we need to be cautious and incremental about it. And, let an individual state test it out first to see how it works, so that we have data about how it works and things like, okay, this is the battle between the conservative and the liberal. You need this battle. It is an essential part of a healthy, functioning United States Republic, or really any political system. Because if you don't do that, if you only have liberals, then they do stupid ideas. And if you only have conservatives, then you don't get any progress and things get a little bit too strict. Okay? These are the problems. That's why you need both. But then you've got this third group that has come in. You have this third group that has come in, and I would say that they're largely in the left, but I would argue that many of them are in the right too. The ones that are in the right, you would never know that they were there because they've basically disavowed their previous positions and just become like hardcore conservatives. But you can still see it from time to time. For instance, these are the people that say taxation is theft because they don't really actually believe in the Constitution, or at least that's not something that they think about. That's not their natural tendency, right? My natural tendency is, first of all, what does the Constitution say? Their natural tendency is, what do I want? Well, I want to not pay taxes, therefore taxation is theft, even though it's in the Constitution. You get what I mean, right? And this third group is screwing the whole system up, particularly on the left. And they have gained such a foothold on the left that the Democrat Party has become completely dysfunctional. Hearing some stuff about oil. I don't know if that's what caused. I think that this move in the E-mini may have just been a freak move, and as such, we might get stuck around these levels for a little bit. Right? So what you're starting to see happen now is that people on the left are realizing that these monkeys are coming in and ruining everything. And that's why you get people like Bill Maher that come in and say, listen, I understand what you're saying and I understand what you believe. It's just that what you believe is stupid, right? It's not even like an actual real argument. It's just like you want to believe things about the world that are just simply not true. And we don't know where you're getting it from, but it has no place in a functioning society. He's right. Listen, it should be the battle between conservatives like, Ted Cruz or Mike Lee and liberals like Bill Maher. And it's turned into, liberals like AOC, which is part of the loony contingent. That's what's going on right here. What does it have to do with trading? Well, it's just you got to understand the balance of power and where things are going in that respect, right? So it's going to matter at some point when we come into the 2022 election, right? How that all sorts out. It has to do with the market. It has to do with news, yeah. Sometimes maybe not everything that I say about it has to do with the market and news, and I just want to talk about it. I'll freely admit that. Here's the question for you, Icarus, because when you ask that question, it suggests that you don't want to talk about that, right? So the question is, why don't you want to talk about that? Right? Like, we could understand if the market was doing something really important we should be focused on something else. That would be a thing, totally, right? But I always get this thing from people, I don't want to talk about this subject, why not? And the reason that I always kind of zero in on that is like, hey guys, you know what? If you really want to get good at trading and you really want to find an edge, and one of the strongest edges that we have is news, then probably you should enjoy talking about these sorts of things. You know what I mean? Find a trade from the politics or policy, not just an opinion. Well, you know, you're right. Right now, I don't know we have a direct trade-off of all of this, right? I just kind of got pulled off onto a tangent. But it is a lot of background information that we keep in mind it could be relevant in the future, right? Markets are a key component of politics. So yeah, well, politics are a key component of the markets now. Actually, one would argue that politics are the most important component of politics now at this point. With the way the Federal Reserve is holding everything up and fiscal policy and everything, it seems to me like politics is like one of the most important things, right? Some people are different. Yeah. You're right, Stick. How do you guys think that I should be dealing with that? Because I have really moved recently. I mean, can you tell over the past few months in particular, I've really turned into a like, I don't want to come on stream and be like, I'm the guru guy that you should all follow, and here's the advice that I'm going to give to all of you, and you should all try and trade the way that I do, and this and that. Like, I'm actively trying to avoid that. And yet, that's what most people that come into these streams are looking for. Of course, not you guys that have been here for a long time, but most of the people that are new that come in, that's what they want, right? Short AOC. Seth runs his channel like a gentleman's club where they hang out and in between trades and chats, so we all have a nice butter will bring us snacks. That is totally it. It is like a gentleman's club. Ah. You're trying not to be the guy who tells everyone what to do in a world where everyone wants to be told what to do. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel, Lucy. I don't know if that's exactly correct, but that's how I feel about it. Pre-08, the USA didn't have a real plan for another event or crisis. Dodd-Frank solved that issue. So I don't know why you're saying that, but I totally agree with you, by the way. I'm not going to say that everything that was in Dodd-Frank was a good thing, but there has kind of been this, and there's this issue that really irks me, and I see it more from the left than anywhere, but there's like this group of people in the United States that think that like nobody should ever have to take on risk or anything like that. They think that like we can design this perfect system where all risk will be eliminated and then nothing bad will ever happen in markets. And it just doesn't work that way, you know? And they were functioning on this idea that this system was safe and that we had solved all of those problems. And after Dodd-Frank, they kind of started to move towards, actually, we can't solve all of these problems and we have to be prepared for bad things to happen. And yet, there's still kind of this other thing that's like, now it's kind of turned into another issue, though, which is like, we can't prevent bad things from happening, but what we can do is we can shield everybody from the consequences of them. It's kind of what it's turned into, isn't it, right? Well, I think that you're going to run into the limits of that one at some point, but for now... What are you saying? Or maybe we all finally have a seat at the cool kids table in the cafeteria. I'm here for Seth, not for his training. Thank you so much, Spick. That's what I want. Those are the viewers that I want. But let's be honest with ourselves here. Is that there really that big of an audience out there for Seth? That they just like Seth? I'm skeptical about the extent of that audience, you know? Stick with what you're doing and you'll grow a following like all the big streamers? I don't know, man. Because I look at other channels and I can see there's a lot of channels that started before me that have gotten really big. And I kind of feel like that in many respects I provide a superior product, and so I'm sitting here like, okay. I don't think that it's like like there's something structurally wrong. I think that it kind of turns into what you're providing is not necessarily what people are looking for. So how do you deal with that? How do you can either accept that if you want the stream to be mostly about your personality, that it's always going to be somewhat limited. Well, I don't want it to be mostly about personality. I want this to be a collaboration. That's the way that I think of it. If it was just for me, probably wouldn't just do trading, right? If it was just for me. If it was just for me, I would just have a stream where we talk about whatever the heck we want. But this is a stream where we do trade. So we talk about whatever we want while we're trading, because it's supposed to be like a gentleman's club, a group of guys that enjoy each other's company and are working together to trade together. Yeah. And of course, we don't share all of our edges with each other, but we do share information to collaborate and get better as a whole. And I think that part's been really effective, right? Yeah. Oh, I see this. I see who you are. I enjoyed the dialogue when others were around. Well, it hasn't changed at all. Sorry, do you want to argue more about technical analysis today? Well, you kind of missed the technical analysis doesn't work sermon earlier. That was more at like the top of the hour. This is just Salim again, isn't it? Like it seems like uncharacteristic of him, but then when he goes back into some of his like usual things. TA is a rainbow flag? Oh, I get it. Wouldn't say that. Let me say, I've been doing a little bit of research. I've found a couple of empirical studies that kind of suggest some like inefficiencies found through technical analysis. But every single time that I find something that even kind of hints that you can find something through technical analysis, it turns into it only works on longer time frames. It's never intraday patterns. Now, I have found intraday patterns. So I found a study the other day about intraday patterns. I'd have to go and find it, but you can find it on SSRN. And this guy tested 3 strategies. One of them was the opening range breakout strategy, and one of them was the gap reversion strategy. You don't know who Salim is? Okay, well, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. There's a troll that comes in that will bring that up over and over again. Bots is still around, but he's been keeping to himself lately. I think he's still kind of working on his strategy, and he wants to focus on just that. So that's why we haven't heard as much from him. But he was telling me that he tunes in almost every day. I think you're very valuable for your blend of financial news and politics with your analysis of the market. Well, thanks. I mean, look, if you go on CNBC, they talk about this stuff, right? Like it's, of course, it's a little bit different when it's on CNBC, but I'm feeling a lot better now. When could you tell? The wooziness went away. The issue could be that because I ate oatmeal and a banana, like maybe the sugar hadn't gotten to my blood quickly enough or something. Amplifies a YouTube channel that does this. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that a big reason why the YouTube channel seems to have, or at least the streams is a little bit lower right now, is because I'm not releasing regular videos. So if I was releasing a regular video every week, I think that we would be doing a lot better. I think that if I had always been completely on the ball with that we could be closer to 10K, but right now it's been really hard. So I'm working on, my organization and how I record and everything to try and be more efficient so that I can use the time that I have to record more effectively. There are slight adjustments you can make that make a huge difference. Well, yeah. Anyways, going back to what I was getting at though was like, okay, so if we kind of acknowledge that what the audience wants and things like that, how do you deal with it? Do you come in and you say, well, we don't want to do that, so we're just not going to do that, which is kind of what we've done, right? Or is there some sort of middle ground, I was thinking back to last year in April, we had the same conversation. That might be right too. Yeah. Before we under 25 and before we had 50. Yeah, but we've oscillated between 25 and 50 a lot. So I wouldn't say that it's like particular. I'm not like super worried about it simply because I know that over time it goes back up, like that it fluctuates. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm sitting here going like, oh no, the channel is dead. You're never going to be relevant again. And it's all over and I might as well just quit the channel now. No. No, it's not like that. But it does kind of give you pause about like, okay, well, maybe we should change some things. Thing is, over the last, past 2 weeks, we've been talking politics a bit. But before that, we hadn't really talked about a whole lot between then and when Biden got inaugurated because it's just not that much happening, is there? It was just today when brought up that old argument again, right? Yeah, oh gosh, and for that wild week with GameStop, you had 600 viewers. Wasn't that a bit much? It really was. I mean, it was more than that. It was like 2,000, 3,000, something like that. Listen, I think that 1,000 concurrent viewers would be fine if we were all on futures, right? So this is the issue with that one. Is like, okay, so we come in, we'll trade something. Do we get people come in on the GameStop thing? Yes, but the channel's not about GameStop, and because the channel is not about GameStop, there's like a limit. Like those people don't stick around. You know what I mean? You enjoy the added attention? Sure, but I think to me, it's really more about like, I want the channel to be successful. Like, let me back up. I do have to get going soon. I used to do a lot of stuff with like the rave community, right? I really like trance music. I produce trance music. I will just kind of screw around with it. I guess I have something that I think is ready to put up, that I should put up, but I just haven't bothered doing it. Maybe I should pay somebody to master it, but I don't take it too seriously. I take it a long time to do things sometimes. I'm not like a grinder on it and didn't really ever take it professional. It's kind of turned into like when I really need to unwind and reset, I will go and I will produce music. But before that, I worked really hard. I enjoyed the community. And to me, it was like, there's something for us to do here that we're supposed to do. And I'm not talking about it from like a mystical, spiritual kind of position, but more like you come in and, you can find purpose and there are things that you can do to help people out. And ergo, it is my responsibility to do that. So we went and we did all of these things. Like we had a Facebook group or a page for a while that we were using to promote people's music, which did quite well actually. until Facebook changed things. I wish that hadn't have changed because I enjoyed doing that. And we threw our own parties even too. Like we wanted to get the trance community going, and we did that. We threw parties. I went and I opened for Above and Beyond, which was my favorite DJ, and that was kind of always my goal. And I was never looking to be like a touring DJ or anything like that. It was just like I wanted to play a couple of gigs here locally and have my due. And I did all of those things. And then I got divorced. And after I got divorced, I started to look at these people, especially like the guys that were like, when I was doing events, like they were like, this was their first things, and they came in and they wanted to be DJs, and they did it. They were successful with it. And I would even say more successful than me with it, because that's what they really wanted to do, right? And so it was like I had done the thing. And so I didn't need to be there anymore. You know what I mean? And so I made the conscious decision when I got divorced that it was like, I need to go focus on other things. I'm doing weightlifting, so I can't really, I want to trade, so I can't really stay up late anymore. It's just, like it turned into a different thing, right? So then we came into trading, and, I saw the same thing. It was like, there's not really a community, and that's what we need to do. And we created that community, and I think we've done really well. The Discord is still more popular than the YouTube, and that's what I think I should expect, because a lot of people, you got to realize when you're here on the stream, it's basically like I'm thinking for you to some extent. Like, it's like this voice in your head. And when you're trading, that can be a problem, right? So I understand why not everybody wants to listen to it when they're trading live, but they still subscribe to the channel and then they watch the one-off videos. That's why it's important to do the one-off videos. So it's like, okay, we've got this community. Are there things that we got to do? Well, there's still I think that there's these main concepts that I think I've really turned you guys onto, and I'm starting to see them percolate into the larger trading community. So that's good. That's good. But there's still some things to do, right? And to me, it's one is the camaraderie, and two is just the challenge. Like I totally love the challenge of, okay, what sort of things go viral? What sort of things get you views, and what sort of things don't get you views? And I've done a pretty good job at that, haven't I? There's been more than once where I've caught on the right thing, whether it was the earthquake or whatever, and you get a huge rush of people that come into the channel, right? But they're short-lived because they're not really there for the thing that the channel is about, They're there because it was an earthquake, or they're there because of GameStop, right? So when it stops being about GameStop, they're not going to be interested anymore. There's limited longevity to that, right? So to me, I think it's more about that challenge. Like I would love to just only make YouTube content. If I could, and I had the ability to spend a lot more time talking about the day's news. Like remember when we did that at the end of the day? That went okay. I think I could do better at that. But that's what I would really like to do is someday is have enough that I can do the YouTube channel full time and have employees, have somebody that does the camera and have somebody that does writing. That's what I would really like to get to. So when I think about the success of the channel, those are kind of the things that's going through my mind. Yeah. Do I like attention? Sure, but I understand that attention is short-lived, and I've gotten to the point in my life where I kind of realize that you don't really need that, and that you don't have to chase after that. Like, it will come and go, and that's okay, and that's just the thing, and you don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? And it's the same with people in the channel that are really dedicated. They're going to come and go because trading is a hard thing. It's totally fine. You know as well as I do that if you want success in YouTube, you're going to have to do something that you aren't on camera. I don't know if that's true. I think that I just, if I continue to develop my content and put out good content and continue to get better at that we'll continue to grow the channel. A lot of these new traders are going to filter through the guru stream soon and start to begin their trading journey. You might be right, Stick. I think I get what you're saying, and I share your positive outlook. I'm just there's also some limiting factors where we have to kind of think about where should we make adjustments. But it's really hard. The real issue here is that it's really hard to sit and talk about that sort of thing and what kind of adjustments we should be making when I'm having a hard time even putting out one-off videos every week. That's really the thing that I've got to do for the channel to really make things better, right? Yeah, the Holy Grail quest is always the first disaster for... Yeah, totally. Anyways, so Icarus was saying, you can't admit you picked fights with these other guys, only observing these, not accusing anyone. Well, so straight up. So with Ace, no. Ace, I still am really confused with why Ace decided to disappear. It was kind of weird to me. Like, that's why I keep saying, like, it seems to me like he was getting something different out of this stream. And that when I came in and said, well, you're pushing it a little bit, you're starting to do something that could potentially cause you legal problems. And then it was like, oh, well, then the stream no longer serves my interests, and I'm going to go. But Gary and Blunt, I 100% did. And I'll tell you why. Because Gary posted so much bullshit. Was one of these guys, he showed us some things, and he gave us some stuff that was useful, although I would say that a lot of it was things that, like, probably I should have been more aware of, and I just wasn't, because I don't watch options so much, you know? And he straight up said many things, many times, that ended up being, like, so disastrously wrong. And it wasn't just like, hey, listen, I'll make a call and I'll be wrong too, right? But it was the way that he went about it that I started to sit down and I started to be like, listen, this guy either has a way bigger ego than is justified for how good he is at doing these sorts of calls, or he's like actively trolling us. You know what I mean? And so then we got into Blunt, because Blunt kind of got brought in referred by him, and he was doing the same thing. He was pushing bullshit. He was making claims about technical analysis that he couldn't back up, and then he was almost like starting to promote himself off of it. So that's why they're gone. Yeah, that's why I was talking about Gary there, Stick. So that's why Gary's gone. Gary can come back. I didn't ban him or anything. But I think you're wrong. These other guys posted good information. Yeah, you can post good information, but you can also post bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty simple, really. It's a battle of eagles. You want to have dick swingers who want to take charge of the chat, and they're never invariably going to be competing with you. Yeah, sure. That's just... So I like it. Gary gave us one or two pieces of good information, but he was starting to say things that were crazy. Like, honestly, he was straight up starting to say things that were crazy. And when I called him out on it, he just like flipped. So like, whatever. Hey guys, I gotta get going. I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay proper.